Three people arrested for allegedly making explosives. Carrie Lam says border restrictions unlikely to be relaxed before July. And Quad nations meet in Japan, though the focus is Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Good evening and welcome. Three people have been arrested for allegedly making explosives in a public housing unit and inciting others to cause harm.
Officers are investigating whether the suspects were planning on an attack on July 1st, which will mark the 25th anniversary of the establishment of the Hong Kong SAR.
The team, during their search, identified a significant quantity of chemicals and laboratory equipment. They are consistent with the manufacture of two powerful homemade high explosives, specifically TATP and HMTD, which even in small quantities can result in significant explosions, resulting in death or serious injury.
Police raided a public housing unit in Wong Tai Sin on Monday. They say a 31-year-old man who claimed to be a computer technician turned one room into a mini laboratory. The suspect and two family members were arrested. Earlier, the police internet crime unit claimed radical forces said online they can make explosives and incited others to assault police and judicial officers.
Former University of Hong Kong law academic Benny Tai has been slapped with a 10-month jail term for engaging in illegal conduct at an election. The court heard that Tai placed 6 newspaper advertisements in 2016 to promote his strategic plan for the LegCo general election that was held the same year. The 6 ads, placed through a company called Eggs Alliance, incurred election expenses totaling more than $250,000. The expenses incurred were illegal because Tai was neither a candidate nor an election agent of any candidate. Tai earlier admitted to 4 counts of engaging in illegal conduct at an election.
Hong Kong logged 250 new COVID infections Tuesday, including 34 imported cases.
Health officials say they suspect a small-scale coronavirus outbreak may have taken place in a kindergarten in Kowloon Tong. Authorities said St. Catherine's International Kindergarten reported 6 COVID infections involving 5 students and 1 staff member. 2 classes involving around 60 students who shared the same classroom are required to suspend in-person lessons until Friday. Also, 2 more customers, a domestic helper and a 33-month-old toddler, were infected with the virus after they visited a McDonald's restaurant in Tai Kau Shing. The toddler's mother, who didn't visit the eatery, was also diagnosed with COVID. Meanwhile, a 39-year-old man who lives in police married quarters in Chai Wan also came down with the virus. He had visited a couple carrying the Omicron BA.2 subvariant who had returned from the U.S. Hong Kong's chief executive says it is unlikely that border restrictions will be further relaxed until the current term of the government ends.
But Carrie Lam added the final phase of easing of social distancing measures could still be implemented by the end of June. Christy Khan reports.
Yesterday, Hong Kong recorded less than 200 daily COVID infection cases for the first time since the start of the 5th wave of the pandemic. But speaking ahead of the weekly Executive Council meeting, Chief Executive Carrie Lam said the city's border control measures will not be further relaxed during her term, even though some chambers of commerce have called for the scrapping of quarantine arrangements.
The local infections are kept very low now. So the imported cases account for a rather significant share of the total caseload. And on top of that, we are seeing different variants under this BA.2. So we have to be extremely careful in sort of implementing the restrictions on border controls.
She added the border control measures are necessary and will remain in place.
We will still have the hotel quarantine. We will still require vaccination before a passenger could board a plane to Hong Kong, and we will still impose the test and hold, whether at the airport or at the hotel for a PCR test, in order to keep Hong Kong safe.
Furthermore, Lam also said the vaccine pass scheme will stay for a period of time. She said the city must strive to improve the inoculation rate, citing only around 86% of the population have received 2 COVID jabs and only about half the population have had the booster dose. Christy Khan, TVB News.
The 25th anniversary of the handover is just over a month away, but the chief executive isn't saying if any state leaders will be in Hong Kong on July 1st.
As for the government restructuring plan, Carrie Lam says she aims to have it approved by LegCo in June. Caleb Leung has details.
As the city's epidemic situation is stabilizing, Chief Executive Carrie Lam announced that celebratory activities for the 25th anniversary of the reunification have restarted.
Of course, we look forward to visits by state leaders. We look forward to their important speech. It's just like 5 years ago, on the 1st of July, President Xi made an important speech. At this moment of time, I'm unable to give you any information. When we're in a position to do so, we will make announcements.
With the new chief executive taking office on July 1st, the structure of the new term of government is expected to be different from the current one. One of the main changes is the creation of 3 senior secretaries above the rank of ordinary policy secretaries. Critics say it is creating unnecessary bureaucracy.
It's not appropriate for me to make comments on the proposal, especially on areas that would reflect his governance philosophy, as well as areas that he's happy with. In relation to the proposal of 3 chief secretaries and the 15 policy bureau made by this government, the CE-elect has taken that fully on board.
Lam said LegCo's establishment subcommittee will hold a special meeting this Friday to debate and vote on the restructuring plan. The proposal will then be tabled at the Finance Committee on June 10th. Lam is hoping LegCo will approve the resolutions on June 15th. Caleb Leung, TVB News.
Despite the challenges Hong Kong has faced over the past few years, the city still ranks number 3 in the Global Financial Centre Index, neck and neck with New York and London, according to Dr. Rocky Tong, Director of Financial Services Development Council.
Speaking on TVB's Straight Talk program, Tong also said a key risk facing Hong Kong is a record number of both expatriates and locals leaving the city.
Without talent, the financial services industry is almost empty. We need people to operate, and therefore, it's not only about the expatriates. We also need to focus on how our local talent is servicing our industry as well. Right. So even though some people are out there, have moved out of the city, at least reportedly so, we hope to attract others to come in and serve the city.
He said border reopening is very important for Hong Kong to re-engage with the rest of the world and retain its talents. Tong also said the growth of cryptocurrencies and blockchain technologies will drive the city's business forward. In other news, U.S. President Joe Biden spent the last day of his Asia visit joining talks in Tokyo with the leaders of Japan, India, and Australia, known as the Quad.
Looming over the meeting was Biden's blunt statement yesterday that the U.S. would intervene militarily if China invaded Taiwan. Alan Bognia reports.
At his first meeting of the Quad was new Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, who was sworn into office just yesterday.
The new Australian government's priorities align with the Quad agenda, taking action on climate change and building a stronger and more resilient Indo-Pacific region through better economic security, better cyber security, better energy security, and better environmental and health security.
Tops on the agenda of the Quad meeting was Russia's invasion of Ukraine.
We're navigating a dark hour in our shared history. The Russian brutal and unprovoked war against Ukraine has triggered a humanitarian catastrophe, and innocent civilians have killed in the streets, and millions of refugees are internally displaced as well as exiled. And this is more than just a European issue. It's a global issue.
Biden also held bilateral talks with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Unlike other Quad countries, India has not imposed sanctions or even condemned Russia, just calling for an immediate cessation of hostilities.
We also discussed the ongoing effects of Russia's brutal and unjustified invasion of Ukraine and the effect it has on the entire global world order. And the U.S. and India are going to continue consulting closely on how to mitigate these negative effects.
Responding earlier to a question about his statement that the U.S. would intervene militarily if China invaded Taiwan, Biden stressed America's policy of strategic ambiguity remains.
Our policy has not changed at all. I stated that when I made my statement yesterday.
At the close of the meeting, host, Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida, acknowledged that each of the 4 Quad countries has a slightly different stance on Russia's invasion of Ukraine. But he said all the leaders agreed that each country has to abide by the principles of the rule of law, sovereignty, and territorial integrity. Alan Brooknia, TVB News.
Still ahead on tonight's news, Russian diplomat resigns over invasion of Ukraine. United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights begins visit to China. Top scientists are honored by Shaw Prize for their contributions to science. Welcome back to TVB News. Heavy fighting is raging in eastern Ukraine, where Russian forces have stepped up assaults beyond the front lines in a bid to consolidate control of parts of the Donbass region.
The Ukrainian president, meanwhile, has told global business leaders the world must increase sanctions against Russia to deter other countries from using brute force to achieve their aims. In a video address to the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, Volodymyr Zelensky called for maximum sanctions against Russia, with an embargo on Russian oil, a complete halt of trade, and a withdrawal of foreign companies. Many of the European Union's 27 member states are heavily reliant on Russian energy, but the bloc could agree on an embargo within days. As it's further isolated, Moscow has indicated economic ties with China will grow. U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said yesterday global defense leaders have agreed to send more advanced weapons to Ukraine, including arms to protect its coast. As Ukraine begins investigating thousands of alleged Russian war crimes, an international law expert says Russia may decide to hold its own trials of Ukrainians. The warning comes after a court in Kyiv sentenced a young Russian tank commander to life in prison for killing an unarmed civilian.
The timing suggests that the Ukrainians should have held back and perhaps still should, so that the Russians can't say, we're just doing to their soldiers what they did to ours.
Moscow's main investigative body said it intends to interrogate the Mariupol defenders for war crimes against civilians. The World Food Program is warning of a catastrophic failure in food supply chains that could lead to starvation and global instability. Ukraine has more than 25 million tons of grain that cannot be exported due to Russia's blockade of its Black Sea ports.
So there's no question it's going to mean areas of starvation in the world, and this situation is going to tip many countries over the edge.
Farmers in Ukraine say they are running out of time to work their fields for the summer harvest and face huge logistical problems, even if they have grain to export. Meanwhile, a veteran Russian diplomat to the United Nations office in Geneva has quit and sent out a scathing letter criticizing the aggressive war unleashed in Ukraine by Russian President Vladimir Putin. 41-year-old Boris Bondarev resigned after his statement was delivered to the press. Bondarev said he had never been so ashamed of his country for Russia's invasion of Ukraine. He said those who conceive the war want only one thing: to remain in power forever. The resignation provides a rare glimpse into the discontent within Russia's diplomatic corps over the invasion.
The United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, Michelle Bachelet, is in China for a 6-day visit. The visit is the first by such an UN official since 2005. Bachelet had a meeting with State Councillor and Foreign Minister Wang Yi, where she stated she wanted to see cooperation on human rights issues. Wang said he hopes the visit can enhance mutual understanding and clarify matters. A key issue is whether Bachelet will be allowed to visit internment camps that China calls vocational training and education centers.
The World Health Organization says the monkeypox outbreak outside of Africa does not require mass vaccinations.
This as public health authorities in Europe and North America are looking into more than 100 suspected and confirmed cases of the mild viral infection. Matthew Bray reports.
Apparently, according to an advisor to the World Health Organization, the outbreak of monkeypox in developed nations is a random event that might be explained by sexual behaviour at 2 recent raves in Spain and Belgium. In Central and Western Africa, people are mainly infected by animals. The WHO now claims the disease can spread with close contact with the lesions of someone who is infected. But a British doctor said the close contact needed to spread monkeypox should not confuse people into believing it is a sexually transmitted disease.
No, this is a virus that moves from being to being through close contact or perhaps by respiratory droplet spread. So this is a function of the way in which humans interact, and coming into close contact, a popular method of doing that is through sex, and I think it's coincidental that that's the way in which it has made itself manifest.
To date, there are about 90 cases of the disease in a dozen countries, including Israel, France, the US, Australia and Switzerland. On Monday, Denmark announced a case and Portugal revised upwards to 37. Health officials in Europe say the likelihood of the further spread of the virus through close contact is considered high. These symptoms, however, are mild, including fever, chills, rashes and lesions. Given the hyperbole surrounding viruses these days, the technical lead at the WHO explained that monkeypox and COVID are not the same thing.
Transmission is really happening from close physical contact, skin-to-skin contact. So it's quite different than COVID in that sense. So we are looking for people who have rash, so we can help them first and foremost to understand what their risk is.
Most people recover from the disease within several weeks without requiring hospitalization. Matthew Bray, TVB News.
Back in Hong Kong, 6 people, including Cardinal Joseph Zen, deny charges of the alleged failure to properly register the now defunct 612 Humanitarian Relief Fund. 5 of the defendants, including Zen, former lawmaker Margaret Ng, and singer Denise Ho, arrived at the West Kowloon Magistracy this morning. The fund was set up in 2019 to provide legal, medical, and emergency financial assistance to those arrested in anti-government protests. The court adjourned the case until mid-September. 6 European and American scientists have been named this year's Shaw Prize winners for their achievements in scientific research.
It's the first time the announcements were made online due to the epidemic.
The Shaw Prize Foundation today announced the Shaw laureates for 2022. This year, the Astronomy Prize is awarded to 2 professors of physics, Lennart Lindegren from Sweden and Michael Perryman from Ireland. They're honoured for their role in the conception and design of the European Space Agency's Hipparcos and Gaia missions, which measured the positions and motions of billions of stars. The Life Science and Medicine Prize goes to Paul A. Negulescu and Michael J. Welsh from the US.
For landmark discoveries of the molecular, biochemical, and functional defects underlying cystic fibrosis and the identification and development of medicines that reverse those defects and can treat most people affected by this disorder. Together, these discoveries in medicines are alleviating human suffering and saving lives.
The Mathematical Sciences Prize is awarded to Noga Alon from the US and Ehud Hrushevsky from the UK for their contributions to mathematics and geometry.
The Shaw Prize is an international award dedicated to honoring individuals, regardless of race, nationality, gender, and religious belief, who have achieved significant breakthroughs in academic and scientific research or applications, and whose work has resulted in a positive and profound impact on mankind.
The award ceremony will be held later this year. The laureates will be awarded a medal and a certificate, and each prize also bears a monetary award of $1.2 million. This marks the 19th year of the awards.
That's the news. Thanks for watching.
Good night.